Hello and welcome to Off the Hook Crochet with Nicole and today I wanted to just celebrate a little bit because as of this month, April of 2025, I've been crocheting for 2 years. Now, for me, 2 years doesn't seem like that long at all. I mean, there are people that have crocheted for decades, and uh, it just seems like such a minuscule amount of time. But I have to say, in that 2 years, I have crocheted a total of 81 projects. 81. And that's not actually, I mean, I'm sure there have been other projects that I didn't account for, little things that I've made off here and there. I know there was a couple that were like really big, like I made 18 pumpkin placemats and I made 7 Christmas trees. Those kind of account for one project each, not 27. So, there's, I mean, that's a lot of crocheting I've done over 2 years. 81 projects, that's an average of over 40 projects a year. That works out to be math, hello, just under 4 projects a month. And a lot of those are garments, so they are bigger projects. They're not just little, projects that take a day. Some of them are, a lot of them are, but not all of them. So I've actually done a lot of crocheting in that amount of time, and I thought it would be fun to kind of do a walkthrough of my crochet journey today from where I started to where I am today, and maybe even a little bit of where I feel like going. Kind of depends on my voice. I've been sick for the last week, and so I'm not sure how well my voice is going to hold up. I had actually planned this video coming out a week ago, but because I was so busy and then my voice got. So, yes, at the time of this recording, I planned this video coming out 2 days ago, but it is what it is, right? So let's kind of hop over to the computer because I have everything logged. If you're not familiar with the channel, I'm a data nerd. I like to track everything. So I actually use a program called Notion to track all of those details. And I want to just kind of take you on a little bit of a journey down the last 2 years and see how far I've come. Okay, so here we are on my crochet log, and I have these sorted out by year currently. And of course, I can actually change these. One of the things that I love about this program is that I can change these and sort them by different factors. But let's just kind of go through a timeline. First of all, we've got these washcloths. These are like my first legit project. And you can almost see here if we scroll down to the picture, like here's my first wonky attempt, and it actually kind of turned out okay on my second attempt. So not too bad at all for a first project there. And then my first kind of big project, you'll see a theme. I actually like red, white, and blue. I do tend to be fairly patriotic, and my first RV, her name was Betsy Ross, so I did a lot of things that were red, white, and blue for her. And so you'll kind of see that theme. But I did have the red, white, and blue yarn, and so I made this granny square bag. Now, generally speaking, I'm not a big fan of colored granny squares like this, where it's multiple different colors. It's just my personal preference. I'm not a huge fan of that, but I knew that these were going to be an easy kind of practice project. So, and I do actually still use this bag as kind of a market bag on occasion. So, yeah, it's still there. No, I'm not going to go through all 81 projects. I will kind of scroll, but I want to pull out a few highlights here and there. This is a hat that I made for my best friend's grandson, whose name is Lincoln. And of course, you know, it had to be a little Lincoln sized hat. So super cute. This was my first attempt at amigurumi, and part of the reason why I don't do amigurumi on a regular basis because I don't think I'm very good at it. Now I know it requires practice, but you know, I mean, yeah, it's a challenge for me. This was my first official wearable. It was the campfire cardigan, and I don't wear it. I still have it, but actually, maybe I did finally donate it. I love the colors. I think the colors turned out fabulous, but it's just a little too big for me and a little bit not my style overall. And I don't love the yarn. The yarn was really kind of a little bit too scratchy for me. I really like soft yarn, so like over the top soft. So this was your classic acrylic. I well, I might be able to tell you what kind of yarn I used. No, I don't have that listed on this one, but you know, it was probably like a big twist or something like that. And it just was just a little too scratchy for what I like. I want something that's soft and cozy and just, so I don't wear that. The next garment I actually made was this shrug. And this is supposed to be one of those wraparound kind, but it actually turned out to be more like a scarf. It's way too small. I love the yarn. I actually kind of like the way that the yarn worked up, but I never ever wear this. This was using the Lion Brand mandala. Um, I I would like to gift it to somebody actually, so that's still kind of in my thought process. I just got to find somebody who is tiny enough to actually have this make sense for them because with my girls, this is just not quite the right fit for me. And then I made a couple more attempts at amigurumi. My granddaughter loves dinosaurs, and I made her a matching hat to go with it. So those were all kind of there. And here's another dinosaur for my grand nephew. He wanted one to match his little guy over here, and so this was the result. It's definitely getting better, but the tension on these hurts my hands. And I think maybe that's why people do a lot more of the plushies than the amigurumi. If you if you kind of know that, let me know in the comments below. Here is the stack of placemats I was telling you about, and this took me forever. But I have to say, I learned a lot about tension, trying to keep an even, steady tension. So these are kind of a family Thanksgiving tradition now. So they've been used 2 Thanksgivings in a row, and everybody is super happy with that. This was my first kind of winging it experiment. Again, I wanted to kind of make. I thought that these shawls they're just more work to kind of keep. I wanted something that I wasn't going to have to constantly fight with to keep up, and I have to fight with this to keep it up. So I used a bunch of scrap yarn. I did have some yarn that was kind of bringing it together throughout, but I used a lot of scrap purples that my mother-in-law had given me, so I'm kind of happy with that, and I didn't use a single pattern for this. So this was completely my freehand design. And that was like 7 months after I learned to crochet. So you can do it too. So that's kind of what year one was. I had a lot of success. I was really happy overall. And the big win was that I stuck to it, right? I did. I stuck to it. So let's hop over to 2024 and talk about what I made there. This obviously has been my largest year to date because it's been my first full year. I haven't obviously gotten all the way through 2025 yet, so let's kind of jump in and see. This was for my grand niece, and her name is Violet, and I made her this cute little baby romper. And it was actually my first kind of challenging in that there was a lot more detail to it. I'd never done this kind of fancier stitch. I'd never done the increases, decreases kind of scenario that was required in the legs, but I think it came out beautifully and it is just super adorable to the point where I actually made another one for a charity auction with a matching hat as well. So, yeah, those are super cute. I also made this hanging fruit basket, which I think is super neat, and I haven't really figured out a use for it yet. I think it's cute. I love it. Actually, I did use it on my last RV trip, and I put it on the bathroom door and put barrettes and ribbons and hair things that I use to kind of do my hair. This was my first personal garment for the year. This is a spring. I know. Look how funny the coloring is on that. This is more true to the color than this is. This is a mesh sweater, and I actually really, really love it, but it has started to lose its shape. It's the yarn is a little bit heavy on it, and it's gotten to be kind of baggy. I have worn it a handful of times, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. But one of the things that I'm super proud of on this was that I made it too small. Now, that's not the part that I'm super proud of, but how I modified it was that I actually crocheted two side panels to go up the sides. And instead of going straight up and then ending at the armpit, they went straight up and then they tapered so that as they went into the armpit and then back down the arm, it kind of gathered because I didn't want a big, you know, baggy arm. That's the word I'm looking for. So I kind of improvised and was able to modify and fix it without frogging the entire thing. I know, Farrah, you like things froggy, but I would rather not frog if I don't have to. So that was a great way to kind of improvise, and I'm super proud that I was able to do that. This was my first attempt at a bucket hat, and I actually liked it when I first made it, and the more and more I started looking at it, and even now I'm like, oh, that's horrible. It's way too tight. It was too small. My goal was to make something that wasn't going to just kind of blow off in the wind, and that's really not how a bucket hat should be. So, yeah, so you'll see later that I made another attempt at it. Here's another garment that I made, the Vivian top. And again, I'm really happy with the way this came out. I'm learning a lot as I go on things that I like this form, the sleeves kind of hang out. Now I probably would have done an extra row of trim up here because it kind of comes off my shoulders a little bit. But to be honest, I have no yarn left. Well, I have like this teeny tiny ball of yarn left. Was not going to be anywhere near enough to do something like that. But this is a really cute top. I actually still wear it, and that was a pretty one. Then I got into making these Clio fedora hats. This was my first attempt, and it was actually the brim had way too many rows for me, for my personal preference. So other than that, I loved the hat. So I actually ended up, I think I sold that one to somebody else and ended up making a couple of other ones. One for me, in fact, you can't quite see it, but the blue one that I made for me is up there. And I sold, I think, 3 of these. So each of them is just a little bit different, and I got better and better with each one. Now here's just a little fun kind of project. It took me a couple hours to make, and this guy is my nephew-in-law, and he loves beer, so I just made him this cute little beer koozie. Here's another one that I had fun kind of improvising on, because this one, let's see if I can pull that up. Now, the pattern for this one goes to about here. And my granddaughter said, I want one that goes longer. But she didn't tell me that until I was already about here. And this yarn is actually quite a heavy weight yarn, it's quite a heavy yarn, not a weight. So it's still thinner on the thinner side, but it's got more heft to it. Why do they have to use weight for the terminology for yarn? Anyway, so I had to improvise to make the bottom longer without adding a lot of extra weight. So as I got to a certain point that was going to be cover enough for her, then I started making it a little bit more of a lacy pattern, and that worked up really well. So you can see down here I did a bigger kind of lace. Super cute, and I am super happy with that one. Let's see, again, some red, white, and blues, different patterns. This was another cardigan that I made, and it took quite a bit of work. I'm not thrilled with the side stitching, but everything else on this turned out fabulous, and I love this. I love this cardigan. It's so cute. It's a good weight. It's a good yarn. It's comfortable. It's perfect. Let's see here. The tulip tank was another granny square pattern, and I think this is stunning. However, there's 2 things wrong with it. One, it's too small for me, so I needed to go up a size. I was not quite yet good at really figuring out what size I needed to make for me. I'm much better at that now. It was just going to be too small, and everything, this was going to pull right here so that it didn't stay good. And because of that, or maybe in addition to that, this yarn was very thin in spots and had a tendency to break very easily. So if there was any stretch on this garment, it was not going to stay together. So I ended up gifting this to somebody else, and I just love this yarn. It's beautiful. It's just not meant for something that's going to be worn on a regular basis by any means. All right, let's see. Here's my second, actually, this is the redo of that bucket hat. So this is the second version of it, where I actually followed the pattern and really paid attention to what she did. And it fits much more like a bucket hat and makes a lot more sense. Let's see. Oh, this one is also one of my favorites. This is using a very lovely hand-dyed yarn that I picked up on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and it is in the colorway Outer Banks Sunset. So I really wanted to honor that concept, the colorway and everything like that. So I thought, you know what? I'll make a bag that kind of looks like the water with the sunset reflecting on it and a sandy beach. And so I just totally came up with this pattern on my own. I kind of added the wave stitch in there. The only thing, there's a single crochet stitch that kind of transitions in here, and I would like to do something different on that, but I'm not sure kind of how to modify it. So it ends up with a big line across it. That's the only thing I don't like about it. Everything else, I am super, super happy with the way this bag turned out. Again, not one that I had a pattern for, so I'm really happy with that. Let's see what else. We get into some Christmas projects, some succulents, and yeah, some different things here. Here's my Christmas tree village that I did 7 different Christmas trees for. Now, these Christmas trees are actually not stuffed in any way. And the reason is you can see them all here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because if we turn them around, they actually sit on the top of the bottles of alcohol on my bar. So my Christmas village sits on my bar, and because the bottles of alcohol are in the background, I wanted to cover them with the Christmas trees. I think it's brilliant. My husband actually thinks it's brilliant. He shows this off to everybody. He's like, "You got to see what my wife did." So it's one of the few things that I've actually seen him like super excited about that I've done. Not that he's not proud of me. He just doesn't get that excited about crocheted items. So, yeah, so that was 7 Christmas trees that I crocheted. And then I love these slippers that I made for my granddaughter. This was using some leftover Malabrigo Rios yarn that my mother-in-law gifted to me. It was just enough scrap to do these slippers. So it wasn't going to make anything bigger than that, but it was perfect amount for this. And then of course I had to use a different color for the soles, which actually works out because the soles are now in acrylic, and that means that they're a little bit hardier. And I don't have oh yeah, there you can see. I added little, I bought some non-slip glue so I could add that to the bottom so she could walk around with them without slip sliding around. So that was 2024. Let's pop over to 2025. Now, I have not cleaned up this one quite yet, so there are some different things in here, and this includes things that I've given away and things that I've purchased and been gifted, but it also includes patterns. I don't know why I have 2 on here of the infinity scarf, but I did make this infinity scarf, which came out great, but again, this yarn is not my favorite because it rips. I mean, it was even ripped on the skein. So as I was working with it, I'd come across an area that it was already ripped. So it's beautiful, it's soft, it's a stunning yarn, but I can understand why it's discontinued because it's fragile. And then I made this cropper knot cardi, which is right here, and it's super comfy, super soft. It's not the most attractive. I think I could have gone down and made it longer, and that would have made it much better. But I was slightly afraid I was going to run out of yarn, which is silly because I had plenty left. And my sweatshirt modification, I do have a video on this sweatshirt modification. So if you want to know how I added the rivets here and added the string, because this was a solid neckline and I cut this to make it have a V-neck, and then I cut the sleeves off and added these sleeves. I do have a video on that, so I'll link that in the comments below if you're interested in how I made that. And then my Great Crochet t-shirt experiment. If you've been watching for a bit, you've kind of seen as I have started making these t-shirts. I'm getting obviously much better at garments. Here's the second one of that style. This is the exact same pattern. It's just a different weight yarn. And as I go, I am also working on these patterns here. All of these are kind of whips that I have going on. So I've got some amazing projects in the works that I'm having fun with. And there's one that I have not even included in here because, well, I haven't really, I've just sort of started it, but I'm totally making it up as I go. It's not a pattern project. It's one that I'm kind of creating on my own. And that uses, if you saw my Hobie yarn haul, the latest one, the alpaca yarn that I got is one of the yarns that I'm using for that project. It's only one of the yarns. There's two different yarns, and that's one of them. So that I'm really excited about, hoping it turns out fabulous. I'm sure it will. You never know. So, over the last 2 years, I am really amazed because I have, throughout my whole life, been one of those people that I would pick up a hobby and it would last, I don't know, until it got hard. And then I'd give it up. And that was pretty quick, usually less than a couple of months. This is one that I stuck with. It was definitely hard. It's still hard. There are definitely challenges that I face on a regular basis. I just frogged 97 rows of a project because I was not happy with the way it was working. So I frogged 97 rows back to start it all over again. That's insane. But I really love the yarn that I'm using for this, and I wanted it to come out amazing. And so the only way to do it justice was to do it right. And so I made that commitment. And my husband's like, "Boy, doesn't it frustrate you frogging that much?" You know, I mean, sometimes I guess it does, but I kind of try and just look at it as that's just part of the process. And if I want the garment to come out, or the whatever it is that I'm making to come out and be really happy with it, so that it's something that I use for a while, then I want to make sure that I do it right. Now there are other times that I'm just like, nope, don't care. I'm just gonna keep going. I probably should be frogging this, but it's not happening. So it really just depends on the project. So let me know, how long have you been crocheting? I didn't mention I actually am completely self-taught. I learned how to crochet on YouTube. So, hello, here we are. Now, I do have a YouTube learners tutorial beginner series that mostly are not my videos because I don't do tutorials like that at this point. Who's to say that it doesn't change? Anyway, where I'm going from here, I would like to really start designing patterns. I know that I'm a long way from that, but it is definitely something that is on my radar. I've started watching a few how to design pattern videos. I haven't taken any classes yet, but it is kind of on my radar, and really high on my radar, because I have ideas. I don't know if I'll ever sell those patterns, but I definitely want to design patterns for myself. I just want to be able to tweak some of the things and, modify things so that they work better for my body shape, for the style that I'm looking for, all of that good stuff. And so that's what I'm really excited about. Plus, I love doing these videos, so I hope that I can keep doing them along with making some amazing things. And yeah, and we'll talk to you soon.